Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a true story that honestly sounds like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood screenplay. We're talking about a massive prep school drug ring built by two kids you would never in a million years expect, and the stark, undeniable realities of privilege that their inevitable downfall exposed. We're going to map out exactly how this happened, step by step, from their wildly ambitious plans to the rapid, spectacular collapse.
So how exactly do two prep school lacrosse stars end up building a suburban drug empire? It's wild, right? These are kids with literally every advantage in the world. This wasn't a crime of desperation or systemic disenfranchisement or survival. Oh no, this was born out of profound hubris, boredom, and just entirely misplaced ambition. To truly grasp the paradox of this elite criminal enterprise, we really need to understand the environment that incubated it.
Section 1. A wealthy suburban drug ring.
Okay, to understand the sheer absurdity of this whole operation, we first have to look at the incredibly insulated world these boys came from. This story takes place in Haverford Township. It's an idyllic, tranquil suburb right outside of Philadelphia. Picture tree-lined streets, perfectly manicured lawns, super family-friendly vibes. $266,000. That is the average annual household income here. The average home price? It hovers around $1.2 million. It's a community just brimming with resources, high expectations, and significant generational wealth. It's basically the perfect place to raise a family and set kids up for a wildly successful future.
And that insane level of affluence brings us to this next number, $35,000. That is the annual tuition for the Haverford School, an ultra-prestigious all-boys prep school located right in the heart of the township. We're talking about an institution that produces Olympians, Super Bowl champions, Ivy League professors, and congressmen. It's this elite bubble of academia and athletics with a crazy, intense pressure cooker environment where success isn't just hoped for, it is absolutely demanded. And, crucially, this exact campus is where our two eventual masterminds first cross paths.
Section 2. The unlikely masterminds.
But here's the thing. Even though they wore the exact same lacrosse uniforms at that elite institution, their backgrounds couldn't have been more different. First, you've got Neil Scott. Neil actually grew up in a much more modest home, and he was a scholarship kid recruited specifically because he was a stellar lacrosse goalie. But after high school, things went pretty south for Neil. He developed anger issues, got kicked out of college for making fake IDs, and eventually moved out to California, where he worked at a medical marijuana dispensary and just kind of spiraled into harder prescription drugs. Now, on the flip side, you have Timothy Brooks. Timothy came from intense Villanova wealth. His family lived in a neighborhood where the average income was well over $400,000. He was the golden boy, the charismatic captain of the lacrosse team. He went off to the University of Richmond on a lacrosse scholarship, but then suffered a devastating, career-ending shoulder injury. Overnight, his primary identity was just gone. So you have these two guys, college dreams totally crushed and futures uncertain, moving back home to the burbs.
Section 3. The Mainline Takeover Project. Sitting in their childhood bedrooms, totally bored and searching for some sense of accomplishment, they reunited. By the fall of 2013, they had conceptualized a massive, highly illegal new goal. And they weren't just looking to sell a few dime bags to their buddies, they wanted an absolute monopoly. Listen to this text message from Timothy to Neil. Every nug on the main line is about to come from you and me. We will crush it. The sheer hubris there is just unbelievable. They formally named their operation the Mainline Takeover Project, targeting the Philadelphia Main Line, which is a string of 17 incredibly wealthy suburban towns. They sincerely believed they could become the primary suppliers for the entire elite of the region.
To actually pull this off, they needed logistics. So they set up their headquarters in Neil's cramped apartment, which, mind you, was dangerously located less than 900 feet from the Haverford School itself. Super risky. Neil tapped his old California dispensary connections to get high-grade weed shipped in bulk through the mail. But since they had absolutely zero ties to any actual criminal underworld, they utilized the only network they knew, the tight-knit, party-heavy prep school lacrosse community. They literally recruited their former teammates and current high schoolers to be their sub-dealers, spreading their reach across 5 different high schools and 3 local colleges.
What's really fascinating here is the bizarre contrast in how they managed this expanding network. Neil totally took on the bad cop persona. He acted like he was a hardened cartel enforcer. He would purposefully leave 9mm handguns sitting out in plain view during deals just to intimidate these suburban teenagers buying from him. He routinely texted violent threats and even put $1,000 bounties on the heads of dealers who crossed him. Insane, right? Timothy, meanwhile, approached the operation like it was a corporate internship. He was the good cop. He would literally wear business suits to go visit high schools, showing off large amounts of product to woo kids into working for him, even offering drugs on credit to build brand loyalty and expand their market share.
Section 4. An amateur operation crumbles. For a hot minute, they were actually moving serious weight and raking in cash. They operated under the total assumption that they were untouchable. But despite Neil literally reading books on how to run a successful drug ring, their actual business street smarts were laughably bad. They made huge rookie mistakes from day one. I mean, they used their personal, completely trackable cell phones to coordinate every single illegal deal. They recruited a 17-year-old subdealer nicknamed MGM who actively bragged about the illicit business on Instagram. And the kicker? When police finally set up a sting on MGM, the teenager panicked and threw his jars of merchandise out his bedroom window directly into the waiting arms of an undercover detective stationed below. They left a massive, undeniable digital trail that law enforcement followed without even breaking a sweat.
So as you can imagine, the inevitable collapse happened spectacularly fast. The Mainline Takeover Project officially launches in the fall of 2013. By January 2014, literally a couple of months later, the Montgomery County Narcotics Enforcement Team is already reading their texts and tracking their personal cell phones. By late February, the police raid their homes, seizing 8 pounds of marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, hash oil, and over 11 grand in cash. By April, the former Golden Boys of Haverford are standing in a courthouse, facing severe felony charges for manufacturing, delivering controlled substances, and running a corrupt organization. The entire empire barely lasted 4 months.
The community fallout was immense. The affluent town was absolutely dumbfounded. Families were slamming their doors in the faces of reporters. The Haverford School, desperately trying to manage a massive public relations nightmare, went into overdrive to distance itself from the scandal. Officials were basically declaring from the pulpit that their extraordinary reputation wouldn't be tarnished by the bad decisions of a few alumni. But the entire region was still forced to reckon with the undeniable reality that an organized drug ring had just flourished right in their own backyards.
Section 5. The price of privilege. But, the most crucial takeaway from this explainer isn't just the mechanics of the crime itself or how hilariously fast they got caught. It's what happened when the media circus finally died down, the guilty pleas were entered, and it was time to face the music at sentencing. The contrast here is just staggering. Timothy had a massive safety net. Over 50 people showed up for him in court. His therapist, his boss, his AA sponsor, and his incredibly wealthy family. The judge, clearly swayed by this robust support system, sentenced Timothy to just 9 to 23 months in a local county jail. Timothy used that time to get sober, and when he got out, he went to a new college, won a Division III National Lacrosse Championship, and founded 2 sober living homes. Neil, however, the scholarship kid with a modest background and zero safety net, he stood practically alone in that courtroom. He was handed 5 to 15 years in state prison, and according to the source material, he is likely still sitting in a cell today.
2 masterminds. 1 exact same criminal enterprise. 2 vastly different fates. As we wrap up this incredible true story, I really want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. When the gavel finally falls, does our justice system truly weigh the severity of the crime committed, or does it ultimately just weigh the strength, the wealth, and the privilege of the community safety net standing behind the criminal? It's a heavy question, and it's one this case leaves echoing long after the headlines fade. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the structures around you.